Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. I already got the time zone mixed up with our guest today, but that's just purely me being stupid. And for some reason, I think Kentucky almost seems like it's in Europe. That's far east it is, but I guess it's not. So, Sean, were you aware that Kentucky wasn't in the Eastern time zone?
For some reason, I always think that Kentucky is right below Ohio and we're in the same time zone. But it's so weird because there's parts of Indiana that wrap around Kentucky, and I never understand it. It almost feels like sometimes people in Kentucky can go south to go into Indiana, which makes no sense to me because it's further west. So I don't know what's going on with that whole deal.
Yeah, I don't either. But anyways, before we get ahead of ourselves, this is Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. It's the weekly motorcycle podcast for MotoAmerica. Excuse me, I'm a little tongue-tied. But yeah, Sean, it's Road America, good event. We got through that one, and we're on the verge of heading to the great state of Washington for our event at the Ridge.
Yeah, I mean, Road America is always an awesome event to go up to. It's just, especially this year, it was just a crazy amount of people there enjoying life. And, those people sure do know how to have fun. There's no doubt about that. And, we got loaded up on some good food when we were up there. But yeah, Ridge coming up. And, we all think about last year and how it was 100-degree temperatures. And I don't think it's going to be quite the opposite of that this year, but I heard it's supposed to be maybe in the 60s, which is a little more temperate for that time period in that area. So I guess I'm looking forward to that, but I got to make sure I bring a jacket because I don't do that often. So
yeah, I don't either. I kind of messed up a little bit with that at Road America because it was there was times when it got a little chilly and I didn't.
Yeah.
And we had that for some reason the media center had the air conditioning like it was like we're in Florida or something because it was freezing in there. But yeah, I got to remember that stuff too because it looks from all indications it looks like it'll be normal Washington State weather, which is like 60s, mid 60s, and looks like we got some cloud cover here and there, but it doesn't, at least now, it doesn't look like there's going to be any rain. So that's good. But yeah, if you remember last year, it was just unbelievably hot, like record-breaking temperature. And they're just not really prepared for it. I mean, there were places in town that didn't have ice, and it was kind of an odd deal. So we won't have that again. I think that's just a once in a lifetime deal that we happen to stumble upon. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going back there. It's the track's kind of cool. It's a little different. I think. Let's bring Roger Hayden in. He's our guest today, and everybody knows Roger, former racer, former Superbike winner. Now he does our MotoAmerica Live Plus. He's sort of the only guy in the Live Plus team that doesn't rotate his way out every once in a while because sometimes we have Jason Wygant, we have Robbie Floyd, we have Michael Hill. And the one thing that stays the same is good old Roger Lee. So, Roger, welcome to the show. And I guess we can start off by talking about the season so far. Is there been any real surprise for you? Is the Petrucci thing? Is it somebody doing better than you expected? Somebody not doing as well as you'd expected? Let's start out a little bit by talking about what we've seen so far.
Well, I think the biggest surprise so far, I think, would have to be Tyler Scott. I know he's always been super talented, and we expected this, but I don't think that we expected it this soon. And I mean, not only did he, win the race at Road America, but you look at other tracks like Virginia, he was right in the hunt to win. And I think that was just a little bit of a surprise, kind of being the lead guy over there on that team so far. So I think that's a little bit of a surprise. And I guess with Superbike, the biggest surprise is just all the issues the top guys have had. We haven't seen that out of them, but I mean, it's always possible. But the start of the year was crazy, in my opinion, because after the first race at Road Atlanta, when Jake crashed, I mean, it was like all right, well, the championship's over. You know, he almost went down 60 points, I think it was, or 61, something crazy like that. And then you look at, you know, not 3 race weekends, but just 3 races later, and he's got it back down to 12 already. So that's been a little bit surprising. I think having the different winners in Superbike this year, I don't think has been that surprising. It's been really good. But yeah, I think every class has been really exciting. I mean, for sure, if you just go watching all the races starting at Daytona, like most races have come down to the last lap, run to the flag.
Hey, Roger, it's when you raced, you focused on your own program. And I kind of know this from other riders. I've never really asked you this, but I assume it's probably the same. You knew what the other riders were doing, but not a huge amount. But now that you definitely pay more attention to what's going on, not only in Superbike, but in every class up and through, and all the riders. You definitely pay more attention than you did before. And it's not like you didn't want to pay attention. You really kind of couldn't, because you had to keep your mind on your own program, right? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and then also now too, just because, you know, with the work part of it, is I'm watching every single session, so you kind of remember and know exactly what it is. And also knowing the riders now and everything, social media has helped a ton with that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because everybody puts out their Friday report on Instagram or Facebook, how their day went. And, you know, it kind of gives you the information you need in a way. And then also, like I said, watching all the sessions. So, and also I kind of pay attention because, you know, I want to have stuff to talk about. I don't, you know, like new stuff to talk about. I don't want, you know, we don't want to talk about the same stuff every single weekend, because then people aren't going to want to tune in.
Right.
Yeah. You know, Roger, it's funny about you. You may remember this, but towards the end of your career, when I was working for a brand that you weren't riding for, I would kind of secretly always tell you, you know, you're one of my favorite riders, and you would always kind of go, I know that, or whatever. So I had to keep it under lock and key a little bit, but I got to blow a little smoke up your butt here, because as much as I admired you as a rider, you're incredible as a broadcast guy. It's just, it's amazing. And even now, when you're a quiet guy, you always kind of have been that way, and you still are. But when you're on that thing, you never you never get twisted for words. You never get a block of what to say. You always have something to say. Has that always existed in you? Have you always been what is kind of a talkative person that didn't really talk a lot? Is that right, or is that not right at all?
No, actually, oh, first of all, I want to go back to Paul getting the time zone wrong.
Oh,
There
yeah.
is parts of Kentucky that's Eastern time zone.
There you
So not totally in the wrong. But anyways, back to the question.
Good
Just wanted to
point.
clear that up for Paul.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
You're right. I am kind of a quiet person and not really talkative, and pretty much kind of keep to myself a lot. So when I first started, you know, I have to like remind myself to keep talking. Like, don't just watch this session like I'm at home. And it was kind of hard in the beginning to figure it out, but it's like anything else. The more I get used to it, and you know, sometimes they would come over the headset and they'd say, hey, be a little louder if you can, and just, you know, stuff like that. And it was, you know, just working at it and getting better. And, you know, like you said, having all that information and, you know, like I actually put a lot into it before I go into a race weekend. So I have a lot to try to talk about, and, you know, where we're not just stuck talking about, you know, dead air. Like, you know, always print out the results from the previous race. So if we're headed into Washington, I'll print out all the results for both races at Road America. And then I'll print out last year's results from the Ridge. And then, you know, you can, whenever you're talking, it just gives you more information and more stuff where you're not feel like you're, you know, you have to start talking and make stuff up and running out of stuff to say, because you can say, oh, this is a track that he likes. Last year he got, 2 top fives or whatever. So I try to prepare myself for that, and also just keep working at it and getting more confident. At first, I didn't want to talk because I was scared to death to make a mistake. I was going to say something that sounded stupid. And then it was like, after a while, I kind of realized, you know what? I talk all day. I'm going to mess something up. It's just like racing. Eventually, you're going to crash at some point. So I don't want to make a ton of mistakes, but I know they're going to happen and I'm going to get something wrong. And now, I'm okay with it. And some people, will text you and clean it up. So just getting more used to it. And it's about confidence really. And then, but yeah, it is. I do have to remind myself sometimes, not as much now, but in the beginning, like, dude, keep talking.
Well, and luckily you have guys with you that tend to talk more anyway. I mean, I think it's fortunate you've worked with 3 different guys, which I think probably makes it more interesting for you and makes it easier to talk about different stuff when you have different guys asking you questions. And it's also kind of cool. I think you're in that role, which correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like to me it's easier like when somebody's asking you stuff and you can impart your wisdom on them rather than just have to keep spewing the stuff out. Like your partners, pretty much their job is just to keep talking, and then they include you and ask you questions, and then you bring some insight. And I think that's probably the best way for you that's the best job for you to have.
I think you're right. It definitely makes it easier when they just ask the question, because then you don't have to, come up with, something you don't know, and then it doesn't, you just, when they ask you a question, you just answer with what you did or your experience or, what I think they're thinking. So it definitely makes it easier. And working with different people is cool because each person brings different questions. So it's different. And then also, you get to learn from each person. And, there's some things each guy does that I think that I like. So I try to take that with me and, try to copy off whatever that is that I think they do that I like. So, and also all the people that we work with, we all get along pretty good. So, that helps. Now
Right, got
that
each other's back.
yeah, and also with Robbie now, we can kind of at a point where we can kind of give each other a hard time, and sometimes we're joking and sometimes they're serious.
Right. Yeah, that seems to work out well with you guys. You've got that little bit of a banter now, and nobody takes anything personally when you take a jab at them. So that's always makes it more fun. But so also, Sean, you got to remember that Roger watches a lot of other sports.
Yeah.
And I think that probably helps him as well. If you're watching ESPN all the time and you're watching how football guys talk and how baseball and all that stuff, basketball, I mean, you're able to listen to like the top guys in the business every day, 24 hours a day now with the way that television is. So, I mean, is that accurate, Roger? I mean, you watch a lot of that. You can't help but learn from those guys as well.
Yeah, and I listen to like sports talk radio, and I kind of take the stuff that I find that they're interesting at. I'll tell you one thing though, I used to be really hard on announcers and broadcasters. Like, I'd be like, this guy stinks. They got to get a new guy.
Right.
And then I'm in there in a position, and now I'm like, oh my God, this is way harder than I thought.
Right.
So I don't really complain about all these sports broadcasters like I used to, because now I know how hard that job actually is. And then also too, watching like MotoGP races, World Superbike, and all that stuff, you just constantly kind of learn. And that's kind of where I got the idea of printing the results from the previous race and the race from where we're going from the year before, because whenever I'm watching MotoGP or World Superbike, I kind of like that information. Like, is the track faster this year? Is it slower? Is this guy, having a breakout race weekend, or was he like really fast at this track last year? Stuff like that. So that's kind of like what gave me that idea. And I think a lot of people like it because it kind of gives them a perspective, like they're there, like, oh man, these guys are like at Road America. The Twins guys were 8 guys under the track record. And when you're watching that, you can kind of see how all the Twins guys have really stepped up this year and how much more competitive it is.
Now, there's one thing I think I think obviously you listen to our podcast, which probably expands your horizons and your knowledge of the sport to a point where you can barely contain yourself.
Oh, yes.
But you've also got, someone in like myself who actually, like, I don't know if it's a dynasty or not, but I mean, I've won so many of your Supercross fantasy leagues now. And I've actually, my tax bracket has changed and everything because now I have to report the winnings because they're so high. But I mean, does it bother you that like I come in and win your fantasy Supercross like almost every year?
No, because you've donated enough of the years that when I won, I think it's kind of a wash now. But I gotta have everybody, all my buddies, always ask me, "Who's in to win? Who's in?" They don't know who it is, so
Right.
I got to answer a lot of questions. But you did win the title this year. I'll give you credit on that. So, but
I wish
whether
there
or
was
not
like a belt or something I could wear, like a big belt buckle that told everybody that I was number one. Maybe you could work on getting one of those made.
like a WWE belt.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I need.
Yeah,
All
then
right.
you could just run that around.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. I know it's not easy to be the fantasy manager, but I also know you got everybody's money in advance, and you've got some kind of savings account where you actually make money no matter what. But I'll let that go.
Well, I used to put it in the bank and whatever everybody paid and get the interest off of it for that 3 months. But this year was a little bit of a tough one, so we didn't really get much interest off of it.
There you go.
Raj, I got like three things I got to fire at you, but one of them, Paul's going to love this one. Maybe you will too, but we got to acknowledge the fact of today's Nick McFadden's birthday.
Oh, I just texted him.
Yeah.
I love Nick McFadden.
So do I. I do too.
Yeah, he's got his own business now. Him and one of his buddies started. He was flipping houses. Now him and his buddies started a business.
Flooring, isn't it?
Yeah, like laying concrete and a bunch of other stuff, and I think it's going really well. He acts like they're booked out for a while, and I guess obviously they've made a couple mistakes in the beginning that was tough learning mistakes, but yeah, I think they got the ball rolling pretty good and already trying to look for more equipment and trying to find some good help, which I think is the hardest part, is finding some good employees.
Right.
Has he totally made the transition away from? Does he ride with you guys anymore? Do you ever see him around or at all?
Well, I don't ride anymore at all. I need to
Right.
get back to it. JD asks me every day. Actually, he asked me yesterday to ride today, and I just remembered I didn't even reply. So I'm that guy. But sometimes he'll ride the flat track at JD's house, or maybe a outlaw flat track race here and there. But for the most part, he's it's for fun, I think. Sometimes he talks about maybe doing a Twins race or stock 1000 race, but I think now he's got this business, and I think he's really focused on it and kind of knows that's what's next for him.
Right.
Okay, so I want to ask about you, Roger, a little bit. So let's go back to 2009. You had that terrible crash at Barber, and obviously you had fractures in your pelvis, and you had the issue with your finger, of course. And then, you had some, obviously every rider sustains injuries of some kind in their career. And towards the end of your Superbike career, you had a shoulder issue. So where are you at health-wise now? Do you have any lingering issues from any of that stuff at this point?
Honestly, not too bad. I mean, sometimes when I get up, I'm a little stiff, but I don't know if that's racing or that I'm almost 40 years old, so it's hard to tell, but to be honest, I had some big injuries, and I've been really, really fortunate um, to not have any lingering issues at the moment. I don't mean that they won't come up sometime, but right now I don't have any big issues. And then also the shoulder that was bothering me. Now that I'm not riding and like going to the gym and all that stuff that I'm doing, like 8 months later, that kind of went away. So if I was going to race again, I'd probably have to get it fixed back then, and would have been a long recovery. But now I'm not using it so much or at all. It's when I'm fishing, it's the other shoulder. So it's not I'm not have to get it fixed for the fishing. So I got lucky there. But no, for the most part, I've been pretty blessed to this point, and I'm not sure what's going to happen in a couple years, but right now I'm feeling pretty lucky.
God help us, Sean. Roger Hayden's gone from professional racing athlete to somebody who gets sore fishing.
It's a strenuous sport.
Some days it depends on how they're biting. And if they're not biting very good, the shoulder does get sore from casting 55,000 times and just reeling it in. I'll tell you what, last summer was my best summer fishing, and then I was like, dude, I can't wait till next year. I got a boat, I got all this stuff. I haven't caught hardly anything this year. So, and it's so hot in Kentucky, I can't go at the moment. We're in the middle of a heat wave. So the heat index here with the humidity has been like 110 to 115.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's insane. We got the same thing up here, and I heard Georgia's bad too. I mean, everywhere it's pretty hot. That's why getting up to Ridge is going to be nice. Hey, this wasn't one of the questions I was going to ask you, but since you brought up fishing, I've never asked you this before, but have you ever done any noodling?
No, never. And I don't know. I don't know well, for one, I don't know anybody that does that around here, but I don't know about sticking my hand. I'm already missing one finger, Sean. So,
what the hell's noodling?
Oh, you get right in the water with the fish and somehow you grab the fish with your hands. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
No, so you go fishing in the water, but shallow enough where you can stand, and you just, like in a river or whatever it is, it's the nastiest water. And you just dig around for a fish, and then they pull. You should Google it. And they pull up like this biggest catfish you ever seen, and they're just down there with their hands just feeling around.
I think I'll pass.
Yeah, I don't like catfish anyway. Those things are gross. They're ridiculous. Plus, they got those. Up where I grew up, we called them bullhead up in New York. I think they call them hornpouts in some areas, but those fish have horns on them. Does a catfish have any horns on them?
Well, they're not horns. They got the
whiskers.
gills or the fins on the side. They do have the whiskers, but they also have like little teeth where most fish don't, like real little ones that most fish don't have. Catfish they're pretty nasty. Where I fish, there's some, I've caught a few pretty big ones there, but I always throw them back. But they are, I like eating them though. I like fried catfish. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, catfish is pretty good to eat. You're right, but yeah, I don't want any part of anything else other than eating them. So, all right. So here's my other question I want to ask you about. So our tracks have come up this year a little bit because of obvious reasons, and we talk about the tracks we go to, and we do a pretty good job of going to tracks pretty much all around the country. With Ridge, we've got now a couple tracks out in the West that we go to, and all of our tracks, with the exception of Daytona, we are able to race on them in the rain, and we proved that at MotoAmerica. Obviously, we dealt with that, and it was pretty good racing on rain tires in that Superbike race too. But I want to ask you I want to go back to you raced a little bit in Moto2 and some in MotoGP, but for sure you raced a full season with Pedercini back in 2010 in World Superbike. So you raced at all those tracks around the country like they talk about. And we have a track in Coda that MotoGP goes to, but just because World Superbike or MotoGP goes to all the tracks in Europe, which are each of those countries' best tracks, I would imagine, there are other tracks in those countries that maybe aren't quite the level of a MotoGP, smooth as ribbon or whatever. But what was your experience when you were in World Superbike that year? Were those like the best tracks you ever rode on?
I mean, some of them were really great tracks, just like there's tracks here in the US that I think are really great. And, MotoGP even is making changes to safety where riders are like, hey, we got to change this. Last year, I'm not sure what track it was. They, said it had to be changed before they came back the next year. So, they have tracks too that, not all of them are just this amazing made for motorcycles track. So I think everybody deals with that to an extent. And for us in the US, where outside the US, like MotoGP and all those other series, motorcycles are like their bread and butter. Just about, that's like what they're built for, or F1 and all that. Like they build them with that in mind. In the US, our tracks are built for cars, and some people do want to have motorcycles and they make it safer, but for the most part people are making their money on cars, and that's why a lot of these tracks are built. And for us, personally, I think safety has come a long way. There's definitely some tracks that are probably maybe safer than others, but we don't have like 30 options and we're picking, the best 10. And not that this makes it right or wrong, but we either go to the tracks that we go to, which I don't think they're that unsafe. Obviously, there's some areas, some of them that could be fixed, and a lot of them have been fixed. But we don't have a ton of options, and it's just the way it is. And I mean, even like when we first went to the Ridge, went to a school there, and Chuck Ashland was calling me and texting me, "Hey, go look at the track. Go look, go around with the track people." So, to make it safer. And they made a lot of changes to that, to the track, and then they made more to the next year. And almost all the tracks that we go to now is working with us to make it safer. And all the tracks we go to now, you can, like you said, you can race in the rain, where a long time ago we went to tracks where you couldn't race in the rain, and it was always a big issue every time it came up. So are their tracks so much better than ours? Some of them are, but I wouldn't just say every one of them is just, every one of our tracks are dangerous or not fun. I think the biggest difference for me is between the tracks is ours are sometimes like a little smaller and a little tighter compared to maybe some of theirs. But Indy was pretty small and tight as well whenever MotoGP raced there. So the tracks are definitely different, and I think the biggest thing is theirs are built for racing and ours aren't. And that doesn't mean ours aren't safe, because they are. I mean, if you just kind of, I don't want to jinx anything, but if you just kind of look at the history of MotoAmerica, they have safety is, we don't run into a lot of big problems. And I think that's the bottom line. I think that's when you look to see if something's safe, I think the bottom line is you just go off the history, how many people are really getting hurt or whatever. And MotoAmerica, I think, is pretty safe in that regard.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I tell people the same thing. It's like, if we were going to the Ridge next week and we were putting 100,000 people in the seats, and the place was packed and there was traffic going in and out and everybody was making a ton of money, you could go to those people the next year and say, hey, look, you need to do this, and you need to spend a lot of money to make this happen and this happen. And those people would know they're going to get that money back plus more. They'd be more open to do it. But, it's just not, we don't have MotoGP size crowds, and we don't have MotoGP size money. And in turn, we have what we have. And like you said, the safety record's not that bad. And we do everything we can every year to make even little changes that will somehow make a big difference. So,
and like you said, some of the tracks we go to, if we went up there and demanded, big changes, they would just say, okay, just don't come back next year. We're not going to spend all that money for one event on the weekend when we have cars here 4 or 5 days a week, and they have no problems. And I'm not saying either that we go to these tracks and they're unsafe, but that's all we got, so we have to turn a blind eye. I'm not saying that at all, because this is all we have, but that doesn't mean that they're, everybody's at risk every single corner. And I think as long as racing is going to be around, tracks will need to be updated and stuff like that. As the speeds continue to grow in certain places, certain areas will become an issue. And, they just got to, kind of work with it as it goes. And if you have a problem with safety, I had some problems in 2014 where I thought, New Jersey was a little bit in the wet, it was super cold or whatever, and there was a lot of guys going down. And I went to Wayne and Chuck, and they heard me out. And I think that is the best thing to do is, for any problem you have, is just go to the people that run it and talk to them. And I think you get more stuff done like that than, bringing a lot of other people into the conversation.
Right. All right. Well, let's jump around a little bit. Last week was Nikki Hayden Day, June 9th. When I look back at this, and for those of us fortunate enough to consider Nikki a friend, it's what amazes me is that that it's taken off in such a bit. Like the Nikki Hayden Day is just one example. The foundation. I mean, the impact he's had on so many people, and it's not just people in the motorcycle racing world anymore. It's gone beyond that. Do you sometimes just go, wow, I can't believe what this has become, and the impact and the legacy that Nikki's left behind? I mean, obviously it makes you feel really good. It makes you feel proud. But does it just surprise you that it's gotten to the point that it has?
It does, because you don't, because he's your brother, you don't really see that impact. You just see him as a brother. Because when he came home to Owensboro, where we hung out all the time, he wasn't, and I think that's why he liked to come home so much. It wasn't like he expected to be treated different. Like when we lived together in California every winter, like we all had things that we were responsible for the house, chore wise, because, it was just me and him and Tommy. So everybody had their own responsibilities. He didn't expect to have different, responsibilities or whatever. So you just see him as another person, as a brother. And then now, like, it's like, God, he really did impact a lot of people. I knew he was, big and all that, but as a brother, I think you don't really see it as much, because you just see him as a brother, somebody that you used to share a room with and all that. You don't really see that he's making an impact, not only in the US, but all over the world. And, so many people with, 69 tattoos, and people always asking if they can run number 69 and member of your brother. And it's just like, it's kind of amazing, because you don't really see it, and definitely didn't see it while he was still here. But now, and then people are doing, all over the world, we're doing different things on 6-9. Some people were having rides, some people were doing other stuff. Some people, ran 6.9 miles or, rode their bike. So it was just, even though we had a big thing in Owensboro, which we're going to do every year, just crazy to see that it's all over the place.
Yeah, it is. And I have the 69 stickers on my bicycles, and it's amazing that I'll just be riding, in Orange County, California, and be either on my mountain bike or on a road bike, and somebody will see the stickers and go, "Oh, Nikki Hayden," and you're just like, "Wow, that's like crazy to me," because it's not like motorcycle racing is this huge thing here, it's just not. And for them to know what that is, And I've had my bike at the bike shop before, and the mechanic, I almost feel like he kind of moved me up in the order of working on my bike because I had Nicky's sticker on there. So maybe I need to have like t-shirts and stuff too, so I could get maybe more free stuff or something. But it always amazes me. And I thought it would be the same for you, because like you said, it's like, to you, he was just your brother. I mean, you know, you threw dirty laundry at each other and you hung out in the same room and you rode motorcycles together, but elsewhere in the world, it's just, this turned into a massive thing. Now, my next question, and it's, sorry, because it's also, you know, sad, but the passing of Earl, I personally will, every Father's Day, he would text me and say, Happy Father's Day. And he'd have like a bunch of the little squirrel emojis on his text. And I'm going to miss having that this year. But what's it like, Roger, without having him there? He was such a larger than life person. And he truly was, like, he was the Haydens. And is it radically different in Owensboro now without him?
Yeah, I think it's definitely different, and something I think we're all adjusting to. Because, you know, for one, I was, you know, live right by my parents. So as they got older, I, you know, did more stuff at the house, helping them out. But, you know, every time something would come up in life, you know, as a boy, you go see your dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you're like, hey, Dad, this, that, or you don't really have that. And this year we're kind of doing all the first this year. You know, we're gonna have his first birthday, you know, the first Father's Day, and all that. So it's definitely different. And like you said, just because his personality, like if you were around him, you were entertained. You know, like, you know, everywhere I went, somebody would be like, "Oh yeah, I know Crazy Earl," and, you know,
Right.
like your dad, and tell some story, and so, and all that. And it's just stuff that's different, and you're gonna miss. And you know, I think that's why we try to include my dad in some of this, you know, Nicky Hayden stuff, because we, you know, just because he did so much for people, and this city as well, like charity wise. I mean, that was like his, you know, I mean, heck, he built a Hayden home for girls, basically. You know, that was his idea. So it's definitely different. And, you know, you can't, sometimes I still go up to the house expecting to kind of see him, and, you know, and you don't. And it's just kind of, you know, it was just a bummer, because you just, you know, not just because he was my dad, you know, I love seeing him. It was just, he always had a story, or something was always going, you know, like either somebody owed him money for a car or an apartment, or I mean, there was always something going on in a story. And, you know, and it was just always entertainment. And then now that's gone. But so, yeah, but we're getting used to it. And but it's definitely hard. At least the hardest part really was this winter, from like September to when he passed, because we spent that in the hospital. And, like, you know, watching your dad suffer so much was like, that was the hardest thing that, you know, that I've probably ever been through. So then when he passed away, it's like, God, at least he's not suffering no more.
Yeah.
You know, at least he's not, you know, miserable. So that kind of, knowing that whenever I get bummed out, kind of helps.
Right.
You know, Roger, beyond you three boys, it's amazing how many riders he helped and were influenced by him. You know, we talk about Nick McFadden's birthday being today, but, you know, obviously Jake Lewis, but even beyond Owensboro, I mean, he was involved in helping so many other riders that it extended beyond your family for sure. And it just, he means that much to racing in this country. It's just quite a legacy for him. And the one thing I want to say about Nicky that's become interesting is, you know, you think about, we all think about Kenny Roberts and, you know, what he's meant to us. And for the most part, some of us were able to see him race, but so many people that follow Kenny Never saw him race in person, saw clips or whatever. And it's going to be, and it's getting to the point where it's going to be like that with Nicky. And you can see it's beyond having seen him race or knowing him or, watching a clip of him. It's bigger than that. It's generations that younger kids that are told about Nicky Hayden, just like younger kids are told about, Kenny or Wayne Rainey or Kevin Schwantz or any of these guys. It's like it kind of continues through the generations, and it's quite a legacy to Nicky, and that 6-9 day is going to continue for a long time because it's such a big thing and goes beyond a personal level. I think it's personal for people that didn't even know him personally, right? I mean, it's amazing.
And that's the reason why we have the foundation and the 6-9 day, because kids who are 10 years old or younger, or probably even a little bit older than that, they're not going to know who Nicky is, but they're going to see, somebody advertising the 6-9 day and be like, who's Nicky, who's Nicky Hayden? And then,
right.
Gonna to look it up and then see, what he was and who he was. And I think that's why that we have it. And, it's just to keep his legacy alive, and then they come across something that somebody's donated to his foundation, or the foundation helps somebody and they see it, and then they want to see who it was and what he did and who he was.
So I want to switch subjects a little bit here. I checked in on seeing how your health is, and it's good. And sorry about your shoulder issues with fishing, but I get that. But I got to ask you a question about King of the Baggers. Can we get you on one of those?
Oh, I think I'm starting a little late in the game, I think, for those guys. They got, almost 3 years head start on me. And I didn't really realize when the King of the Baggers first came out, I honestly thought it was going to be like parade laps and
Right.
just cruising around. And then the first time I saw them, I was like, oh God, this is not parade laps. This is serious business. They are going so fast, and I mean, even at MotoAmerica with the long straightaways, they weren't just light years behind the other classes, and even quicker than some of them. So I would need a lot of practice, because I'm not going to show up underprepared and, run around and embarrass myself. But I definitely, I'm not sure about that. I think I started a little late, and I'm not sure I still want to push the limits like those guys and girls are pushing the limits and beyond. I mean, just constantly stepping the game up. It's not going to be before long. I think somebody, eventually is going to drag an elbow on the bagger. And I'm not talking about when they crash, because these guys are backing it in, pushing the front, like they were on the absolute limit, the whole lap.
They're knocking 5 seconds off their lap times from the previous year at every track. It's incredible how much faster they're going. I don't even get it.
I mean, look at all what they put into it. I mean, those Harleys constantly testing. I mean, they're testing more than any team in the paddock right now. And Indian is testing as well. So, I mean, it's like, it's only going to continue to get better as these companies are actually like, I mean, and they're not testing on the street. Like, they are going to racetracks and like taking this testing as serious as a Superbike team does.
Yeah, they're serious for damn sure. I don't recommend you doing that, Roger, because I think that'd be harder on the shoulder than noodling.
Oh, it'd be hard, especially one of those things. But right now, it feels really good. So, I could probably get a weekend out of it at least.
Yeah, sometimes all you need is a little rest with that thing, So what's it been?
Yeah,
3 years, 4 years?
There's always a shot they can, fix it up for a weekend.
Right.
Oh,
all right, boys.
I got one quick. Sorry, Paul.
Go for it.
Just because you mentioned the riding thing, Roger, I haven't asked you about this, but you do the Ducati lap. You get on the V4S, I believe it is, and run around the track. What's that like? Are you just cruising around? Are you trying to go fast? Do you look forward to doing that when you do it?
Yeah, I look forward to it. I try to go somewhat quick because you know, you want it to kind of look real, but also only get one lap.
That's
So
hard.
it's
Wow.
really hard to go that fast, you know, to really go fast. I mean, I don't have, you know, I'm not racing, so I don't need to like, you know, take a bunch of risks to try to make a good video on TV. So I try to go somewhat quick so it looks real, but I have one lap. And then I haven't rode since the previous race where I did one lap there. So it's kind of hard to get going too fast.
Yeah, that's the hardest part when you haven't ridden in a while is I mean, it takes a while just to get your brain used to going fast again. And if you only get one lap, it obviously doesn't get that chance, and it definitely doesn't get it by the time you ride it again when you haven't ridden it. So,
And I've actually kind of forgot like how fast we went. Like,
right.
you know, at Road Atlanta, when I came into that kink, that I remember on a super bike that I held wide open, no problem. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I shut off big time now
Right.
on the Ducati, and at Road America, like the straightaways, I was just like, dude, I am flying. And I guess because I haven't did it no more, and now I kind of brings it all back into perspective. Like these guys are, you know, just it's impressive how they can do what they do.
Yeah. Well, okay, guys. Roger, thanks for coming on. It's always fun to talk to you, and we'll obviously see you next week. And I think we probably listen to you more than anybody, because when we're in that media center, it's you guys talking the entire time. It seems like 24/7. Sometimes I close my eyes at night when I'm in bed and I still hear you. So
Yeah.
but
Telling us bedtime stories, Paul, is what he's doing.
exactly. But
There you
anyway, you've done a tremendous job, and you continue to do a tremendous job, and I'm proud of the way you've picked it up and kind of ran with it. It's nice that you're in the paddock, and the paddock wouldn't be the same without some Haydens in it. So it's good that you're there, and we appreciate all you do for the sport and for sticking up for us and having our back and all that good stuff. But we will see you next week, and Sean, also you next week. I know you've got something to say here about our marshaling issues. So why don't you go for it, and we'll talk again next week.
Yeah, we're trying to make a real push for this. One of the things that we try to do is we try to get about 55 marshals at each round, regardless of the length of the track. But obviously at Road America, it was critical because it's such a long track, and you know you can put more marshals there. But we put a big effort into Ridge and getting some more marshals out there, involving some paid positions as well for them. And we're going to do the same thing for Laguna Seca as well. And it sounds like we're going to be continuing to do it for the rest of the year. So, you know, pay attention to that in terms of our social media and stories about it. But there will be lots of ways that you can contact our Chief Marshal, David Hawley, to essentially, it's a volunteer thing. You just have to sign up, but they will pay you depending on the position. And it's everything from, you know, if you're experienced, it's holding a flag and recovering bikes. But if this is your first time, if it's a first time thing, it may not be a paid experience, but it might be a different sort of thing where you're down along pit road or things like that. So there's so many different areas and ways that you can help us in this series. And as I like to always say, it's the best seat in the house. You get so close to the riders and the bikes that you're really part of the show. You can see yourself, or your family and your friends can see you on TV or whatever on Live Plus. But you know, really become a part of that. It's a great way to join us. And a lot of times people that do join us in that realm end up, you know, getting involved and becoming employees of MotoAmerica. That happens a fair amount. So if it's something that you have a passion for doing, it's a great way to start and get involved in MotoAmerica, and certainly road racing in general. And it's a skill that you can use for club races and all kinds of things. So it's just a really fun and terrific thing to do if you've got a passion for racing like we all do. So I just wanted to put that out there. So for sure, coming up, Laguna Seca, beautiful track. We love going there. And even after that, when we get east again for Pittsburgh and New Jersey and Barber and some of those tracks as well. So please get involved with us. We'd love it. Thank you.
All right, guys, thanks very much. And I think it actually is noon in Owensboro.
It is finally.
All right, you guys, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
See you guys.
All right, see you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.